Do not ask me questions you already know the answers to.
Oh my gosh.
That sounded
We
so sad.
started mid-scold. That's how we start our episodes now, mid-scold.
I felt like it was a little bit inspired by Paradise too. It was like very like intense and
Yes. We
you know.
me and my mom was in town last weekend, and this is how many TV shows I'm watching, Cole. So my mom, we're in an Uber on the way to dinner on Friday night. She goes, "Have you seen the show Paradise?" And I was like, "No, what is it?" And she's like, "It's with the guy from This Is Us." And I go, "Oh yeah, no, I'm watching it." And she's like, how did you not know that?" It was like, I have too many shows. I'm going through too many shows.
I'm gonna need a
I was like,
synopsis
I was like,
and
I think I forgot to watch it. So it worked out perfectly. I stopped at episode 4. She also was at episode 4. So we just watched the remaining 4 episodes together. But if anyone hasn't watched it, it's great. And I got Nicole onto it.
yeah, and then she got me onto Temptation Island, which is a very different vibe,
Yes.
but I needed it.
Yeah. It's like very Moorish. Like you like can't stop watching it just because
No.
it's like such a train wreck. Like for anyone who hasn't seen it, the concept is insane. It's like 4 couples show up to an island. I think it's Hawaii.
Possibly. And also, call me crazy. Was this not something on TV when we were in like high school?
So it used to run on, I don't know which network, but it wasn't a Netflix show. So
No,
there's,
but like the show itself was like this. We're like a decade and something ago.
oh, I don't know. But
Okay,
yeah,
we
the
should look into
concept is
that.
that 4 couples show up to an island, and then they're supposed to be tempted. Like the couples separate, they go to 2 different villas, and then they're like tempted by like 10 hot singles. And surprise, most of them are tempted. So it's wild.
Yeah, no, I'm only partway through, so I'm gonna go curl up on the couch and watch some more after this. But
Nicole's pretty sick, by the way.
yeah, so and if you listen to our 100th, you already know I have pneumonia for the second time in 12 months, which is outrageous. Honestly, I need answers
Unfair.
immediately. I have a appointment with my naturopath tomorrow, so I'm
I'm
hopeful I'm gonna figure some stuff out because I can't keep being this sick. I have like the lungs of an old man, honestly, who smokes like a pack a day.
Yeah, I was just saying to the guest we have on today, I was like, I don't get it because I'm the one who treats my body like poop. Nicole is, you're, I would say, not a big drinker. You don't smoke. You eat very healthy. You've been working out all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, well, the occasional McDonald's Big Mac, but
Hey,
who doesn't?
moderation. Yeah, no. So I'm the only thing that I do understand is like I was in Quebec City again, if you heard the 100th. But when you're around like 500 people and you're getting like 4 hours of sleep a night, clearly your body's not going to respond well. So I
Yeah.
think my body's just like, babe, take it easy, slow down. So that's what we've been doing. Oh, I did it again. I called it
What?
we instead of me. Fuck.
Nicole and her imaginary friend.
Exactly. Dee Dee was her name. Anyways, uh, but yeah, today we have a fabulous guest on. When we've talked the past few episodes about how we had some really incredible guests coming on the podcast, when I say that this was probably one of the ones I was the most excited for, I don't think that's an understatement. Meg reached out to her after seeing one of her segments that she produced online. Honestly, I'm still buzzing after that conversation.
Mm. Yeah, Nicole's looking at me weird. I'm getting kind of emotional, which I'm like,
Yeah, I'm like,
I'm not sure what's going on. I think I do know what's going on. I kind of said at the beginning of the episode, which you'll hear, like sometimes it feels a little bit like you're talking into the void a little bit. Like we've been doing this now for over 100 episodes, and
crazy.
yes, the numbers keep growing and that's exciting, but you don't get a lot of feedback. You don't know if it's working, if people are liking what you kind of have to say, or if it's not even liking it, like if they're getting something out of it. And this was a huge get, like the fact that we were able to get Kate on the podcast, and then the fact that she said she likes it and gets something out of it, just it was a pretty big like full circle moment, I think, for me.
No, for
Yeah,
sure.
Very
This
cool.
episode is, I think, a really interesting take too. We talk a lot about splinter era from the single girl's perspective, and Kate offers a really beautifully articulated perspective from a mom, and talks about kind of the changing dynamics and identity that you go through when you become a mom and the changes to your relationship. So whether you're considering having kids, whether you have kids, whether you know for sure you don't want to have kids, but you have other moms in your life, to me, this is a must listen. And I really, really hope you guys enjoy the episode.
And let us know what you think. We love you.
Bye. Oh, God.
Bye. Oh, Coley. All right, team. Welcome back to It's Cool Us Too. I'm so pumped. We're both so pumped that we have Kate McKenna on the podcast today. She produced and led a digital series on CTV's The Social called Mom Life Crisis. It speaks to a lot of what we talk about here. It's really raw and honest and vulnerable. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but just also Kate's experience of motherhood, how you balance that with friendship and the craziness of life. So Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Your podcast is awesome. I'm a big fan.
Oh, we're so excited to have you.
I honestly am going to say something so embarrassing, but I think that I was so nervous. Nicole can attest to this when I talked to Kate, because you were a big get for us. It was really exciting that you said yes. We were like, my gosh, we got Kate. Like, we were really, really pumped. So thank you for being here.
Well, that's so kind. I'm so happy to be here, in part because I genuinely really enjoy your podcast. And also because when I did this Mom Life Crisis series, there were people reaching out from different podcasts, different publications, but they were all publications and podcasts to do with parenting, and they were all moms. So I was super intrigued and touched by the fact that you guys are coming at it from a different perspective. So I'm looking forward to our chat.
Oh, yeah. I think it's like we're child free right now. We can't speak to that experience. We try to have people on with different experiences. Obviously, you had the opportunity to chat to so many different moms in different sort of facets of motherhood right now, and you're a mother yourself. But before I go and tell everyone your biography, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what your life looks like right now?
Yeah, I am a producer and on-air contributor at The Social, which is a daytime talk show here in Canada. We're on CTV every day. It's kind of like The View for anyone who may not be familiar. And I've been there since day one. So I've been there for 12 years now and worked my way up as a producer, producing all different things and contributing on air in various ways. And now I co-host every other week, which is a great time. And I launched this passion project, which we'll get into, but it was called Mom Life Crisis, as you mentioned. And it was a 5-part digital series that was born out of a moment on the show where I got super emotional. I didn't intend to, but it just happened. And then when I posted that moment and the show posted that moment on Instagram, the reaction from millennial moms was pretty remarkable. And there was an obvious appetite for this type of content. So that was my baby and my passion project last summer. And aside from that, I got 2 kids, 2 boys. They're 3 and 5, and they keep me real busy. And the transition to motherhood was not easy for me. And I did not expect my life to look the way it does. And I am blessed and I am grateful, and I, acknowledge what a privilege it is to have these kids. And yet it has been different from what I expected. And so a portion of my work now is about illuminating that reality and what it can actually look like for women, and particularly for millennial moms.
Just from a context perspective, before you had your kids, before you had your boys, did you know you always wanted to have kids, or was that kind of still something that you were debating between?
I knew I always wanted kids. I'm really close with my sisters. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And I feel lucky that I knew, because I have friends who are very on the fence, have been very on the fence. And so I felt really fortunate that I knew I wanted to have kids, but I don't actually think I thought critically enough about what they would do to my life. I knew I just wanted them. Like, I knew I wanted to be a mom. Like me. Say more about that. I
want to have kids. Okay. I know I'm meant to be a mom, but I don't know, as I've seen my friends have kids, if I've truly thought as critically about this as maybe I need to.
And I'm on the I don't know train. I froze my eggs as a contingency plan. Like, I don't know, just to have them, to feel like I've done something to empower myself, but I don't know if I want them.
And it's so hard because I don't think you can ever really know.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anyone telling you about what their days look like can even inform what your experience will be like, because your experience will be different from your experience
Totally.
is different from my experience, right? I remember getting this advice once, and it was super well-intentioned advice. And it was, when thinking about your future and whether you want kids, like, think about what you want your kitchen table to look like at Christmas in 15 years. Okay,
Oh my
you
God.
seem really moved by that.
Nicole's
Yeah.
very
It didn't
moved.
move me in the same way.
Okay.
My husband likes to quote the rap lyric, there's an icebox where your heart used to be, for me.
Oh my God, I love that.
So listen, I think the advice was great and clearly like hits a nerve for some people.
Yeah.
But for me, the problem with taking only that advice is that it's pretty romantic in nature,
Totally.
and it doesn't actually paint a picture of what your day to day looks like. So I think balancing both the sort of romantic ideal and the realities of the day to day is probably a good thing, because listen, I also admit, like, it is easier now than it was during COVID when I had a baby and a toddler. And I'm sure it will be easier in some ways
Yeah.
in 5 and 10 years. So I acknowledge that I am still sort of in the trenches. But right now, I think it's really important when you're considering kids to legitimately think about, what do you want your days to look like? And are you prepared to not have a minute in your day for you for a good chunk of time?
That's
Yeah.
so true.
Is there anything that you wish, like, other than, thinking about what do you want your days to look like? Is there anything else you wish you'd asked yourself prior to having kids?
That's a really good question. If what I would have asked myself prior to having
Because
kids.
obviously you knew, sorry to interrupt you, but obviously you knew that you wanted to have kids. So I'm not saying like, to decide whether or not you're going to have kids, but I guess when we think about the community listening to this, anything else, like, as they, if they're listening and they're like, I know I want to have kids, like, what else could they do to prepare, or anything that they could ask themselves as a means of preparing for that?
I think I'd get into couples therapy. I think I'd get
Ooh.
into
Okay.
individual therapy.
Yes.
I think
check
we
mark there.
prepare for all the wrong things when it comes to kids. And that blows my mind, that you go to many people go to these prenatal classes and they teach you how to swaddle. And they teach you what a fever temperature is. And it's like, these are things I could Google in 1 minute and that most people could easily pick up. But what they don't talk to you about is how your relationship is probably going to change. They don't talk to you about how your friendships are going to change. They don't talk to you about how your relationship with yourself will change, or your relationship with work will change. I love work. Work was such a part of my identity. So to not be able to work the same way was a gut punch. And listen, call me naive. I don't know why I didn't think about these very practical things. But when the onslaught hits you all at once, and when you're sitting, the loneliness, like, I just think these are things and feelings that, as best we can, we should at least acknowledge may exist. Because what happens is, when you don't go to therapy, or you don't sit down with a woman who's been through this and is going to be very honest with you, you feel like you're a shitty mom. And you're like, why am I so lonely? Why is my relationship falling apart? Why do my friends hate me? And it's like, all of this is normal. But when you don't know it's normal, it's very isolating.
And I can imagine that's probably even exacerbated through the pandemic. So for yourself, you said you had your kids during COVID, right? A lot of my girlfriends did as well. And I know the sense of community that I think a lot of moms previously would have relied on in those early years just simply wasn't there.
And I had one toddler and I was pregnant at the tail end. And I do often think about the lasting effect. I mean, the lasting effect, my God, for all of us in all different ways. But I think about, in those early critical years when we couldn't have a village, and now it feels like the so-called village is sort of coming back. But I do think there was some real damage done there in those early years. And maybe damage is too strong a word, but that's a really critical time for forming bonds. Like, my sisters, my kids' aunt, didn't get to see them that much. Their grandparents, it feels like this surreal movie that I can't believe we lived through.
I know. I feel like I don't even remember it. Like, it's so weird. And I think that that's technically a trauma response, where we are all just going through, like, I don't even know, because I mean, I have some, like, as you said, Cole, fever dreams about it, of like remembering waking up. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the only thing that I looked forward to was there was a new Bravo show every day that I woke up. And that was like seriously the reason that I would like wake up and get out of bed, other than having to work every day from my, home office. But that was all I had. So when you're a new mom in that situation, you don't have the luxury of laying in bed and, watching a Bravo show. I mean, there's so much to unpack there just in terms of obviously everyone's experience is different. But I think that COVID must have, as you said, like really wreaked havoc on that initial sort of bonding experience for the kids and also for yourself throughout that time.
Yeah. And I'm someone who, and I was super honest about this on the show, was like really resentful and really angry during the first, my kid's almost 6, but like the first 5 years of motherhood. And I'm coming out of it, but that scenario certainly didn't help my feelings. Like I was just so angry and resentful. It's hard to live with anyone, let alone a child who demands all of you all the time. And I just remember like certainly not the only day during COVID that I cried, but I had a real cry when Doug Ford closed the playgrounds here in Ontario. Cause it was like, this is all I have. This is all I have. You have to keep, and it sounds so insane and trivial probably to many people listening, but it was literally the only thing I could offer my child where I could step back and like have my coffee in a thermos and take a deep breath. So that was a wild time.
Oh my gosh. And to bring it back to the show and like you're on air, you said the sort of genesis of Mom Life Crisis came from something that happened on air where you got really emotional, you hadn't planned to. Do you mind speaking to what that was and what the reaction was from the women who were watching?
For sure. And listen, I may not do it justice. So if you're able to put in the clip, you can, because I kind of forget now. Okay, great. Well, basically what happened was there was a topic in that day's show and just some inside baseball. We don't know what the topics are till that morning. And which makes it a very cool challenge, a bit intimidating sometimes because you're like, shoot, I have to figure out what my opinion is and how to say it in an entertaining and educational, informative way in an hour and a half. But there was a topic about Lily Allen on her podcast saying that children ruined her career. And she kind of said it with a laugh, but that just, as someone who loved work and was feeling like I had been set back at work because of having kids. And again, it was kid, work from home, go back to work for like a month, kid. So mat leave. I was barely back at work in like 3 years time, in a 3-year time frame, I should say, excuse me. And I just started weeping, and I think the audience was taken aback, and I just said like, I can really relate to this. And again, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was also something along the lines of, as millennial women, we were told we can do it all, but it's, this is really revealed to me that we can't do it all. And just the messages we got back that day were just, it felt like I had opened a faucet or we had opened a faucet with that conversation. And it was just so many women, particularly millennial women, being like, I feel this way too. I didn't know other people felt this way. Thank you for saying this. Can we talk about this? And I remember, I'm not on the show enough to get recognized often, but I remember riding the GO train one morning and some girl came up to me and she was like, "Are you Kate?" And I said, "Yeah." And she just kind of got a little bit weepy and was just like, having my son it's been the hardest year of my life. And I'm so grateful you said something. And so that was sort of the impetus for this series.
But how powerful, because there's this, in the millennial sphere of social media, there's this idea that we have to be perfect and we have to kind of put a filter on everything. And there's no room for honesty and vulnerability, especially for, I don't really know a better way to say this, but like an ugly truth in a lot of ways, right? The things that we don't want to often admit and say out loud. So how wonderful and how powerful of you to say that and kind of spark this opportunity for other women to be like, okay, no, I feel the exact same. Thank you.
Yeah, that it certainly felt good. And that was, that's why I've worked on many cool assignments, but this felt the best to me because it actually felt like a conversation that people wanted, people needed, that we were helping people, that we were giving people an outlet. And I just find, as far as algorithms are so funny because it's like you're seeing something totally different from what I'm seeing, who knows, maybe. But on like mom TikTok and mom Instagram, I find it's either perfection.
Yeah.
Like everything looks perfect and domestic bliss and I love my kids and this is so great and your life doesn't have to change when you have kids. Or it's a woman holding up her phone sobbing in the shower. And I can't relate to either of those things.
It's like, where's the medium?
Right.
Them?
Right. And I get it. Like, I'm a
Wow.
producer. I understand good content, and extremes make for good content, right? Like someone who's like blissful and glowing and it's like a hair commercial and da da da. That's pretty and lovely. And someone bawling, you can't look away. But for me, it was like there's a lot in the middle. Right. And there's many days where I'm a mom, and I shouldn't say days. I call it emotional whiplash. Like there is moments within the same day, within the same hour, within the same minute where you're like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is life. Like, it couldn't get better. And there's days where, and minutes and hours where I'm like, what did I do here?
Yeah.
Like, my life is permanently rearranged. And so riding that wave is bananas.
I think there's so much to be said. Sorry, Meg.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think there's much to be said too for right now. We've talked a lot about, from like the single girl's perspective, how much we're all craving community and how much we're all craving authentic connection. And that's where I personally think that a lot of content that does live in that middle ground, that honest, authentic, it's not perfect, but it's not a shit show, middle ground, is going to really start seeing a rise on our social media, because people want to connect to it and want to feel more real and not have to feel like it's something that they're aspiring to or that they're not good enough. So I think more of that is really going to start coming to the forefront.
Well, hopefully, because that's like what we do.
Yeah, all the time.
Like, I hope so. All jokes aside though, like, yeah, I agree with you. I was going to respond to what you said, Kate, around, because what you described of the emotional whiplash, I feel that for sure from the other side. So the way I would describe it is, I will often, like, one of my best friends in the world lives like about up in Brampton, like a 45-minute trip on the go. And she has a beautiful kid that I'm obsessed with. And like, I'm really close with her husband, and she has another baby on the way. And I will go up there for a night and be so, like, I don't know if jealous is the right word, but be like, this is what life is. This is how life should feel. Like, I'll have this feeling of like, this is exactly what I want. But then I get to leave. And then I come home to my apartment that's like fully, I built it myself and it's mine. And I'm like, wow, I'm like doing all of this on my own. And that feels really good too. And those are good examples of emotional whiplash, like I'm talking about being grateful, but I think it's the same from the other side of the coin, because I'm wondering, like, I'm happy for myself and I'm proud that I got myself here, but like, am I missing out on this whole other side of like, motherhood, or the experience of, having a family, moving out of the city, like all of those things. So I don't entirely know what my point was here, but just that I get it. I think that really resonated.
And I think too, like, I like that you use the word jealousy, because I think sometimes that's framed as such a bad thing. And yet, like, jealousy can be a signpost towards what you want, even if you're not willing to admit it to yourself. Totally. But it can also just be a normal human feeling, right? Like, I am also sometimes super jealous of my friends who can just go out. Like, the idea of just being able to leave leave their house and just go somewhere, like, I'm so jealous of that. But I think it's normal and natural and like human to just admit these things, right? Like, I think, particularly when it comes to friendships, when you're in a group with people who have kids and people who don't, I think so much can get buried when you don't communicate honestly. But it's also really hard to communicate honestly, because that takes vulnerability, and you don't want your friends to think like, I don't like your friends, or I don't like who you've become. But those are sticky conversations.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that, because you talk about the splinter era on Mom Life Crisis. I think it's one of the reasons, I think it's the video I saw on TikTok that I was like, oh my God, we got to get Kate on to chat about this. But that is really hard to navigate in terms of people who are just going through completely different stages of what being a woman in their 30s or 40s looks like. So how was the process of keeping your friends and continuing to prioritize friendship, if you were able to do that? What did that look like when you had kids?
I mean, it's still evolving. My friend group now looks very different from what my friend group looked like before I had kids. And I will say, I'm not someone who has a core. There are some people who have like core groups of their 5-10 girlfriends. That's not me. I have, my university friends, my soccer friends, my high school friends, my childhood friend, like one here, one there, one there kind of thing. It was hard to maintain relationships, because I was barely surviving myself, and I missed the old me. Like, I know that my friends did. I did too. Like I so badly wanted to be that person I was before, who's like, yeah, I'll come work out. Yeah, let's talk about TV shows. Yeah, like let me hear about, what's going on in your life for an hour. And for that first year, it was, and part of it is breastfeeding too. Like that's a choice. I don't know if it's one that I'd make again, and it's fraught in the mom world. But when I was breastfeeding, my kid wouldn't take a bottle. I was on the clock all the time.
Yeah.
And I bring this up. Sorry. I bring this up. Not to turn this into like a motherhood topic conversation, but simply because it was like that kid was like a ball and chain. So
Yeah.
I did not feel like I could escape or go see my friends. And even when I went, I was so distracted because I was like, I have a human being at home who is waiting for me, and I could not focus on the conversation, and then left feeling like a terrible, shitty friend. And so what would happen is, inevitably I didn't see that many people in the first year after having my kid. And then the people I ended up seeing were people I was just meeting in my community, and not necessarily because I thought these were my people. It was simply out of convenience.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I'm bored. All my friends are at work. I guess I'll go to the park. And so you meet people. And some of those friendships have lasted. Many of them have not. A core one or two I've gotten really close with, especially because the reality is we just have a lot in common. But it's been really tricky. And I don't love the word seasons. It feels very Oprah, but I do think there are like seasons for friendships. And I fully anticipate that some of my friendships will come back, in the way that they used to as I get more independence. But it is really hard to maintain friendships in this phase of my life, in part because there's so much guilt around it's like Peter Paul. If I give to one, I take from the other. So if I am giving to my husband, like we don't go on dates very often because we don't have a ton of childcare available. If I go on a date with my husband, well, I'm not seeing my friends and I'm not prioritizing myself and I'm not hanging out with my kids. If I go out with my friends, there's some guilt that like I'm not here with my kids, or my husband might be resentful, and he's a great person. I'm just, I'm giving this is the way my brain works. And I don't think I'm alone in that. So it's trying to figure out, how do I give to everybody and everyone? And that's a tricky thing.
When you had your son, how many of your friends in your life had kids at the same time?
That's a good question. I had a mixed bag. Some were further along than me and had older kids. Some didn't. Many of them did not. I will say, like I was very close. I am close, but was especially close at that time with women I worked with. And interestingly, not many women who I work with have kids. My two sisters, who I'm so close with, neither has kids. So it was a mixed bag, but I guess I would, if it was a split, I would say it was like a maybe 60-40, like 60% didn't have kids.
The reason I ask is because you say it's the way you brought up, okay, well, if I'm going to go see you and I'm going to do all these things, it made it seem like you were taking the entire burden of that friendship and maintaining that relationship onto yourself, which I do think a lot of moms take on. And I say this as someone who had to kind of navigate what friendships meant with my close girlfriends who had kids as the only one who didn't. And reevaluating the difference between like, okay, how much time I'm putting in relative to how much time they're putting in, as in one-to-one, to instead of value proposition. So if I have $1,000 and they have $100 to give, me putting in $10 and them putting in $10 isn't the exact same, right? I have more capacity to give and show up for them than they do as someone only has $100. And I'm using that as my antibiotics may be making me crazy here.
No, that's a great example. Yeah.
And so as someone who comes from the opposite end that you were in, I think I felt a lot of the time that my friends just didn't even have the wavelength for me, and it felt very isolating. I felt very neglected for a lot of it. And it took a minute and a few kind of really deep conversations to recognize, well, one, this isn't about me, which is a very hard lesson to learn. But also, two, there's ways that we can connect. It's just not the same now. So where we used to go out for dinner and like go out for drinks or go do something fun, sit on a patio all afternoon. Okay, well, maybe now they're bringing their baby with them. if we're going to a patio or out, depending on how old the kid is.
Does that piss you off?
No, not at all, because I love all my friends' kids. So I just get them and squish them the entire time. Or what's changed now is I now go to their houses, right? So like I go to their house, I play with their kids. Once their kids are down, then we get adult time and then I can go home. So from the opposite end of that, I think it's just an interesting reminder for those that are single and not necessarily in that space because you internalize it as something about you when in reality it's just moms don't have the same amount of time or resources to go around.
Would it have helped at all if someone had sent you a text, you know, in those early days of them having kids, being like, yo, I'm thinking of you. I care so much about you. I have nothing to give right now. Would that have helped? It would have.
Totally. Because I'm the kind of person that I just need to know that I'm at least in the rotation of what is going on in your brain. And even if you don't have time for me right now, and I'm the same way, like I get really wrapped up with my job. We were talking about this before. I just delivered a 10-day conference and I tell all my family and friends leading up to it, you're going to get nothing from me. Like my entire focus for like the week and whatever, when I'm on site is just this. I love you. If you really need me, I'm there, but this is where my focus is. And I would kind of assume it's the same way back, that if someone just didn't have the space or the capabilities right now, that just quick text, hey, I love you. I'm thinking about you. I'm just totally tapped out right now and just wanted you to know. Love that communication.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah. I think it kind of reminds me of, I lived abroad for like 9 years. And when I moved back to Toronto, it reminds me a little bit of like how you manage that long distance friendship too, of like just knowing that you're still in the quote unquote rotation, or knowing like this reminded me of you, like sending someone a GIF, or how old am I? Sending someone a GIF, but like sending someone like an Instagram or whatever. Or just being like, lol, like went to our favorite like pub, or just like anything to remind someone like I'm still here. I'm still thinking about you. And I think it's really, we put so much pressure on ourselves, regardless of where you're at in life, to like make plans and stick to those plans and make sure that we're showing up in exactly the right way. And I think I'm not on a soapbox now, but I think if we could just give each other a little bit more grace of like, you're not going to show up, you're not going to come correct all the time. Like that's not possible.
Barring the fact that it was a pandemic, when you had your first son and then your second, how could someone have shown up better for you? Obviously a mom can relate pretty easily, but maybe someone who's not in that frame of life.
I think the offer to just be with me. I think you mentioned like come correct and showing up proper. And I think when people would say, do you want to come out for a drink, or can you come out to dinner, or like, can you come on a girls trip? I would almost feel ragey, because it's like, no, I can't do any of those things. And I'm ragey because I want to, but I can't because I'm breastfeeding this child. So the idea, someone once said, and I really appreciated this, that the greatest thing that their friend did for them was offer to come do groceries with them once a month. Yeah. It's like, you know, you have to get groceries. So I will accompany you on this menial task and we will do it together. That to me, it's like, you know, I need to get this done. You know, it's going to probably be really important for me to get out of the house. I might have my baby in a stroller. I might not, but ultimately you just want to see me. So I would say that, or one of the Mom Life Crisis panelists, she was telling me about one friend who was remarkable. And she said the friend would always call and she would say, how are you? And Christy, the woman on the panel, would automatically start answering with how her family and kids were. And her friend would stop her right there and be like, I'm not asking about your kid. I'm asking about you.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was like a pretty good distinction, because particularly in those early days, so much is navigated around the baby. And this mom has had this seismic shift and probably feels, I often use the analogy of like going under. Like many of my friends, even before me, I'd be like, oh, they've gone under once they had a kid. And I didn't know why. I couldn't really understand it, but it was like they fell off the face of the earth for like 6 months. So even just to check in and say like, how are you doing? I think is big.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't talked a ton about the series, and you just mentioned one of the panelists. Like, what else did you learn from the other women on that panel? Like, how was that experience of not only just like having those conversations, but having to guide those conversations? Like, how did that feel as someone who's also a mom, also going through it?
I mean, the day we shot it was bananas. So we shot all 5 episodes in a half day.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was a really challenging and beautiful and cool experience for me, because that day I'm thinking with so many different hats, right? I'm thinking as the series producer, I'm thinking of the moderator, I'm thinking of myself as a panelist, and and there's almost no editing. So what you see is what you get. I almost didn't take anything out. That felt really important to maintaining the integrity of the conversation.
Mm,
So it was a lot, and because we really spilled our guts, like there was tears, and there was people talking
I
about
know.
stillbirth, and people talking about abortions, and people talking about
Wow.
nearly getting divorced and not having sex anymore and losing their friendships, and where is the support that I was promised. It was really intense stuff. So that day when I left, I just sort of didn't know what had hit me. But in watching it back, I was so happy with the quality of the conversations. And it was a very cool casting experience too, because I, along with our executive producer at the social, made a very distinct choice to cast non TV people for a few reasons. TV people often, no matter how hard they try not to be polished, they're polished.
Yeah.
They often have brand partnership considerations. So, I was told along the way, brands don't want to deal with angry moms. Like that's just not the target demo. And there's
Oh, that
probably,
is just giving hysterical woman.
Mhm.
I hate that.
But there's probably some truth to that, right? And so trust, I hate it too. But I was able to, I called, went through a casting process and whittled it down to the group of us who ended up in the show. And these women, I'm telling you, it was one take. There was no editing. They were unbelievable. Like they were just so
Same.
good. They were so good. It was such a mixed bag. There was such a respect for everyone's stories, and there were similarities, but there were differences. And we still hang out. We still go for dinner, and it's a special group. And I think that shows.
That's so cool that I was going to ask if you got a group chat with them.
You know what? We do have a group chat. I am the worst one on the group chat. Yeah, it was actually really cool. One of them organized a viewing party the day it came out. And so she rented out this space, and it was pretty amazing to watch the series with moms that I didn't know, with women that I didn't know, and just to watch their reaction. It was very cool.
Yeah. And I think having them be from like different places, not knowing each other before coming in, I watched the series and like gobbled it up. And I
Oh, thank
think
you.
I particularly loved, I can't remember what the episode was. It was like in the middle. I think it was the Splinter era episode. But I watched the series and I absolutely sort of gobbled it up. Like it was amazing. And I think one of the things I loved so much about it was they clearly didn't know each other. Like it was very clear that they were learning, that you were sort of unraveling things about each person as they went on. So it was like reality TV in the best possible way, because they were figuring things out with the viewer at the same time. And I think there's something about not knowing each other and coming in. It's like, it's not a therapy session, but it's like how your therapist is sort of just there to like listen and not judge. And I think that's really hard in relationships where women have specific expectations of their friend, or sort of vice versa.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it was really important. It was really cool.
Thanks for picking up on that. Yeah, because that's the truth. Most of them had never met until that day. And again, that was by design. So yeah, I was super pleased with how it came out. And just there's so many little lines that have stuck with me till this day, and so many little anecdotes. And when you talk about friendship, there was one woman, Charla, who got very real about her experience with infertility and her friendships and how they were impacted. And we go back to our point about jealousy earlier. She said that she befriended a woman, and I believe it was a fertility support group, and one of them got pregnant, one of them didn't. And the one who didn't was very honest and was like, I need to step back from this friendship for a bit. I love you, but I can't be in your orbit right now. And that relationship ebbed and flowed as one got pregnant, the other didn't, then the other got pregnant with a second, then the other didn't. And that's the stuff that people need to talk about. Like that is the real, like, it's not the baby announcements. It's not that stuff's great, but there's there's so many byproducts of parenthood and motherhood and how it all affects friendship. And to me, that was like a very poignant moment and just like a beautiful, mature female friendship.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really affect male relationships in the same way, right? I mean, if you look, or maybe I'm assuming, I don't want to, but when I think about the type of relationships and changes a lot of my friends have gone through as it relates to motherhood, whether it's fertility struggles, whether it's fertility preservation, whether it's, becoming a mom, maybe losing a pregnancy, whatever that may, from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem as if the men are carrying the same amount of burden when it comes to the ebbs and changes in their relationships, and also the ebbs and changes in their own identities, the same way that a lot of women are. So I think the fact that there's opportunity and channels for these women to really open up and find community is probably more important than ever, especially for a lot of millennial moms had babies during COVID. Not that all roads lead back to the pandemic, but it was such a changing, seismic experience for all of us that, like you said, Kate, we're never going to be the same again.
And I think, what you're speaking about is the unequal distribution of the mental load, which is what
Yeah.
so many moms rail against. It's like, yes, housework is one thing, and there should be, equal distribution or equitable, right, of domestic chores and domestic labor. But the mental load is a whole other thing that tends to really fall to women in hetero relationships. So for sure, what you said, I think, is bang on. But I also think about the fact that, like, if it feels kind of revolutionary for women to have these honest conversations about motherhood,
Totally.
I can't even imagine men. Like, I think that is sort of the next frontier of this, is like, there's a lot of good men out there. Like, we hear about toxic men all the time. Yeah. There's a lot of good men. And where are their platforms for just sharing and processing their feelings? And, I have to say, like, my husband, he's someone who does have like a core. He has 2 core groups of friends. And I remember one time overhearing, but it was a group of them who were about to become dads or who had recently become dads, sharing their fears, their experiences, their vulnerabilities. And it was the most beautiful, touching thing ever, because you just do not hear that.
Yeah.
So, I think they go through it differently, but I also don't think they have an outlet in the way that women do.
But that's such a good reminder and a good thing for me to even check myself, because I do think what we're getting at here, there's almost a privilege that women have to have such community and have the ability to have
it's like
the
more
outlets.
accepted.
It is than it is for a lot of men. So that's a really good reminder.
And I think there's a lot of men out there. Like, I mean, I suspect my husband would say this, when we had our kids, I think there was absolutely part of him that was like, what happened to my wife? Like, where did she go? Like, the person that I fell in love with, the person who was, I've never been like a go with the flow, chill type of person, but the person, right? But you are a monster. Like, all you do is yell, all you do is complain, all you do. And it's like, that those feelings were coming from feeling very lonely, very isolated, wondering what happened to my life, looking at Instagram and seeing people going on these trips or pursuing, like, getting promotions at work or all these things that I would have wanted. So all those emotions came from, deeper places. But I imagine if I flip shoes for a second and think about it from his perspective, it would have been a lot to see the person that you love change kind of overnight, and it's not like changing back has happened quickly, if at all. And I remember I used to get so triggered when people would say to me, like, no, you have to mourn the old you. She's gone now. Like, you just have to accept the new you. Oh, people say that for sure.
What?
I think they mean it in that, like, there's this whole thing, which is like, you birthed a baby and you birthed a mother on the same day, because it really does feel like a change. And it's true. Like, I became a mother. I was never a mother before, but there's something to me that feels so ghastly. Like, the idea that, the death of my prior self, I wasn't cool with that. But that's a very hard, the transition. I mean, matrescence is a word that gets thrown around a lot. It's like adolescence. So it's like adolescence, but it's the transition when you become a mother. And I only learned that word after I had kids. And I think it's a really great word to keep in mind, because much like adolescence, it is hard becoming a mom. It's awkward. Your friendships change. Your body changes. You're going through this whole metamorphosis, but you're told to, appreciate it because it's the best time of your life. And you're going to miss these days one day. And again, there is good and there is bad. And I just think we need to have room for sort of more nuanced conversations about both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's also the worst offenders are often people like I'm just thinking of my mom or her friends or people that are my parents' age because they're all just looking at the idea of their kids or their, friends' kids, sorry, their kids' friends having kids and be with rose-colored glasses and being like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, like I just wish I could go back to those days." You know what I mean? So it's hard because we're still perpetuating. And as we get older, we have to stop that cycle of, looking at, what we imagine are the younger versions of ourselves and being like, oh my God, those were the days though. Like
It's
those were the
true. We do
magic
that
days.
too. It's so true. It's so true that we're guilty of that. And there's like a weird thing that older parents do or grandparents or even moms. Like the further you get from it, the more
Totally.
you
Romanticize
glamorize
it.
it,
Well,
romanticize it.
and don't they say that like remember, you don't remember the trauma of giving birth? Like you still want to give birth again?
I mean, I
I
remember, but I guess I did it twice. So I guess I did it
My
twice.
friend had one of the most like traumatic experiences, and like 6 months later, she's like, "I can't wait to do it again." And I was like, "Girl,
Are you
what?"
nuts? But you know what you made me think? It's an interesting point that you bring up about like your parents or grandparents or that sort of thing, because and I would be interested in your both of your perspectives on this as women who don't have kids and maybe the pressures that you might feel to have kids. But I do, for anyone who's getting pressure from older relatives about having kids, I do think it's fair to say, and what support are you bringing to the table? Because I think there
Ooh,
are many people who want kids, and there's many people who want to be Instagram grandmas and Instagram grandpas, or Facebook grandmas and Facebook grandpas,
yeah, that's where their
and
community
even
is.
Instagram husbands. You know what I'm saying? Like people who love the idea of having a
Yeah.
kid but don't actually want to bring the support. And this is what I mean when I say we need to be practical about it. Like, are you coming over once a week? How are you helping? Because
Mm,
if all you want is the grandkid, but you're not willing to support, then I'm going to make this decision wholly a me decision.
That's
mic
so
drop.
true.
I love that.
And it
That's
takes a lot of
so
guts,
true. But
but
it
No.
also relates to friendship too, right? Like the friends that show up are the ones that are willing to do the support and like be like, okay, I come up once a month or once a week or whatever it is, and I
Yeah.
help put the kid to bed and I give them a bath and I read them a story. And like, I love doing that stuff, but I'm sure it's not great every day.
But I think that point that you make about it being regular and scheduled, like I can't stress how beautiful that would be. Because
Yeah.
it's like if you have to cancel, you cancel, but at least you know it's already in the
You have
books.
standing
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh man,
Man.
I could talk to you forever. I think I have one more question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned like you feel like you're kind of coming out of being under the last year. And I wanted to know like what you've learned about yourself since you've been a mom. Like what do you like about yourself that you've learned? Has anything surprised you? Like, we've talked about shedding your previous self and moving into a new version, but I don't mean that. I just mean this evolved version of you. What have you learned?
What have I learned? These are excellent questions. I think I've learned that candor and sort of air quotes radical honesty can be a really soothing, beautiful thing, and not just about motherhood, but across the board. I think I've really realized the value of just honest communication with no filters and how far that can go. And I think I used to be someone who sort of held back and was like, I shouldn't say this or I shouldn't do this, just broadly and generally. And now it's like,
Mm,
well, screw it. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I need. And I'm still working on that. But I think I've learned that, I can be that person and, share how I'm feeling and, ask for what I need. And so that's been a good learning. I think if I had to be a little bit self-critical, one of the things that I've been reading about lately is I'm really interested in why parenting can feel so hard for millennial women. Because I'm like, I don't think we're weaker than previous generations. Do we just complain more? Like, what is going on here? Is it that we spend more hours at work? Because there's that stat where you know what I mean? We spend more times with our kids than stay-at-home moms used to,
is it
and we're working 40
technology?
hours. Yeah, and one of the things that Dr. Becky, who's this she is this widely known parenting psychologist, has said is that we live in a culture of convenience. And so it is very hard when people have children and they're used to a certain level of convenience and they realize that parenting is above all inconvenient. And so I think if I was being a little bit critical, I think I would really be like, wow, you are someone who likes things done your way. You are someone who likes convenience. And so I'm trying to work through that to be more present, more in the moment, because I think part of the reason why this feels so hard is because I don't get my way almost ever. And so I'm working on that.
What a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
No,
I never thought about how that would impact, like, I didn't think about how I knew about the culture of convenience, but I didn't think about how that would impact motherhood or how that even had anything to do with motherhood. So I think that's a good point.
And it goes back to what you were talking about at the very top of the episode, which is, do you really understand what you'd be getting into before you have kids? Right? Like there's so much like I said, I've been sick the last 3 days and I've just been a bump on the log on my couch. I wouldn't be able to do that if I had a kid. Right? So even just, you've put a lot, as someone who always knew they wanted to have kids, I'm not saying you changed my mind.
I hope I didn't.
No, but you've just added, I think, a layer of realness that for self-reflection and self-evaluation that I've never really given myself the time or the space to think through. So I just, for that alone, thank you.
Oh my gosh, I would anytime. And truly, like, if you want kids, don't let any stories dissuade you. I think it's about setting up your life for success. And I think
being prepared.
Being prepared, that's just it. And I think the moments where I feel so good about parenting are when I'm parenting with other people. Like, the village was a thing for a reason, and we have moved away from each other and we've moved behind screens. And so in any way that you can be intentional about setting up that support, parenting can be beautiful. I think you just have to put in a lot of work to make it so.
The older I get, the more and more I buy into this idea of living on a commune with all of my girlfriends and just raising children together. I feel like that is my paradise.
Yes. I would suggest it. Haven't done it, but I would suggest it, and I will come visit.
Perfect.
All right. Should we wrap up, Cole?
I think so. Yes. So we typically end all of our episodes with one question, and I'm really interested to hear what you're going to say to this, but what does living well mean to you right now?
Living well to me right now means finding pockets of time in my day, even if they're 5 minutes long, where I feel in flow. So that could be in flow with my kids playing on the floor. It can be in flow at work. It can be in flow getting a coffee and walking outside, but finding a pocket of time, even if it's 5 minutes, to make that happen.
And is that because if you feel like you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like me, because I'm leaning into my hobbies or my kids, or I'm doing something wholeheartedly and fully, and I'm 100% present, and I'm not behind a phone, and I'm not thinking of 200 million things. I am just being present. And I think that's the thing about motherhood, is you are pulled in 100 directions at all times, and then you wonder why you're so exhausted. So it's those little moments.
That was
make me cry. That was really good. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to link Kate's Instagram in the show notes. We will also link Mom Life Crisis. It's an amazing watch. So yeah, please go check it out. And thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to keep listening. Oh my God. Your pod's wicked. I'm a big fan.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kate. Bye.
See ya.